Thanks for joining today, Amir. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, well, I think it's like I speak to a lot of contract management providers, and so it's really appreciate you taking the time so I can talk about something else that's not contract, right?
We're not far away from it, but we're
Oh, you're
not
breaking my
contract
heart.
management.
But just for the benefit, would you mind just giving the world a bit of an introduction to yourself? And
Sure. So my name's Amir. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a tech company called Deal Closer. I used to be a corporate lawyer at a large international law firm. I practiced there for about 3 years and then left to start Deal Closer. Worked part-time while the early days of Deal Closer for about a year and a half at a small firm because I wasn't making any money yet from Deal Closer. That lasted about a year and a half. So I'd say I practiced law for about, all in total about almost 5 years. And then I've been doing Deal Closer these the last 5 years as well.
nice. Seems like a lot of people that we speak to come from two tranches. They either were lawyers and then got PTSD from a certain thing that you always have to do and go, there must be a better way and build a better tech, or come from sales or the commercial side. You're a practicing lawyer before? Is Deal Closer a result of you guys having repetitional stress in certain parts of the deal process?
So I actually always wanted to join a startup at
Okay.
some point. My goal was maybe practice law for a max of 5 years, just to get a good basis, corporate law specifically, because I felt that would be the most useful in, going to a startup.
Yeah,
But I always had wanted to join a tech company. I always thought I'd be employee 10 or 100 or whatever, 200 at a tech company. But in then being a corporate lawyer and going through the transaction closing process and experiencing that process firsthand, I was, I had the classic, there has to be a better way of doing this. Like, why are we doing all of this by hand? It's so manual, it's so logistical. We call it soul crushing manual labor, full of soul crushing manual labor. That seemed like if something did ABC, some software, it'd make this whole process a lot better in terms of eliminating that soul crushing manual labor, or even, or if not eliminating, at least automating it. So that a lot of the stuff I was doing as a junior lawyer, I, wouldn't have to be done by hand anymore.
Okay.
So that's kind of how it all came about. It was always the intention to join a tech company, and then had a chance to co-found my own.
So are you technically in HR? Are you employee 1 or 2, or what number are you?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I wasn't the first employee technically, I don't think, because I wasn't getting paid for a few
You have to
years.
pay someone else, right? So they're on payroll
Exactly.
and you're not.
So I wasn't on payroll. I wasn't an employee. Maybe I was employee 0. I don't know, but yeah, exactly. And in the early days, everything that wasn't coding, because I don't know how to code, I was doing.
Okay. Yeah, it must be such a baptism of fire from going from big international law firm where your day is pretty much defined, right? To, okay, I have to do everything to make this a success. So what was the steepest learning curve for you? Was it sales, marketing, accounting? Like, what was your oh God,
Yeah,
I need to get better at this?
that's a great question. And I mean, it's still a learning curve. Every time the company grows and changes, there's new challenges, and the role changes for sure. And I do less of things and more of other things. But in the early days, sales, definitely. I was just saying this the other day to someone, that I think lawyers, at least, I mean, okay, I shouldn't speak in generalizations. My experience is that lawyers do not make good salespeople. There might be an amazing lawyer salesperson out there, so forgive me if you completely disagree. But I think the way lawyers are trained to inherently point out risk, be conservative, give disclaimers about why something might not be exactly like they say, is really makes for a very poor salesperson, because you're trying to sell the dream, the vision. You're not trying to sell snake oil, but as a salesperson, you have to sell, why is this going to solve all of your problems? Why is this going to make your life better? Why will it delight you? And why will it be, perfect for you? And in my head, I'm like I'll mention something, and then I almost feel like I need to give, in the early days, especially, 10 caveats as to why that might not, so sales was, long story short, sales was definitely a challenge, and it's still harder for me. Like, I'm not a natural salesperson, I don't think, by any means. I don't enjoy cold calling. I don't know if anyone does. I don't have to do it anymore, but my first cold call. I think I was like, my voice was almost shaking on the phone, and I thankfully had to leave a voicemail, so I immediately deleted it and tried again. But yeah, I was actually scared doing my first cold call. So
I mean, I'm sure obviously the lawyer in you would have to do the sales pitch and then want to give a like a disclosure about your like a competitive position. But no, yeah, cold calling is not fun, right? It's an interesting topic, sales and cold calling in the world that we live in at the moment, because like there's so much automation software. I'm sure you guys use it as well in some capacity. Some people today even are surprised. I'm like, you're probably stuck in some sort of automation email that you're getting an email day 1, day 6, day 12. Salespeople
yeah.
probably won't want me to disclose this information, but it does kind of make sense to kind of warm them up and then give them a call once you've kind of warmed the lead up. But yeah, calling someone out of the blue, especially a lawyer who have no time, can be fairly short on the phone. I don't envy you. So obviously we mentioned kind of contracts, and I've spoken to a couple of data providers as well. So do you guys kind of sit in like a symbiotic middle between those two, or where do you guys sit in that kind of landscape?
Yeah, so we're not really, so contract management is more about managing kind of individual contracts. When are, when are they up for renewal? When are certain obligations due? Things of that nature. So we more are in the realm of when you're doing a deal, there's can be dozens or hundreds of contracts and documents and ancillary documents to closing a deal. So if we were to back up and explain what we do and what we do as a whole, and then where we fit into the process. So Deal Closer is transaction lifecycle management. So it comes after due diligence, which I'll touch on in a moment. But what we do is we help the closing process. Now, we're pretty broad in our definition of a transaction. It can be an M&A deal, purchase and sale of a business, purchase of shares, purchase of assets. It's used a lot for tax reorgs, which are more like one-sided because it's an internal restructuring of a business. But you can also use this for simple things like incorporations or really anytime you need to get documents signed and exchanged and reviewed, between a number of parties. So ultimately what we do is we help the transaction closing process. And we tackle the, what we call, like I said, the soul crushing manual labor that's required on a deal. There is a ton of logistical work when you're dealing with dozens or hundreds of transaction documents that need to be exchanged, and there's new versions being created all the time of each document. You got to get them signed by, maybe 4, 5, 10, 50 people. It's not as simple as getting one contract signed by 2 people when you're doing a legal transaction. It is a massive process requiring, lots of hours spent on these logistical tasks, like exchanging documents, getting them signed, things that are simple when it's very small, but at the scale of a deal, it's very complicated, complex logistical work. And it has to be done with complete accuracy. You can't make a single mistake. You can't miss a signature. You can't, common things like working off a wrong version, getting the wrong version signed, like none of that can happen, because that can have big financial and reputational consequences to the firm if they make a mistake. And not only does it have to be done with complete accuracy, but usually it's done under really, really tight timelines. Like these deals got to close, especially if there's like a tax law change, you got to get it done by the year end. There can be lots of time limits. And so not only are you doing a ton of work with trying to make 0 mistakes, you have to get it done within a deadline. It's not like litigation, which can go on for years. These deals need to end. And so when you're working really rushed and you're putting in tons of hours, and there's only so many hours in the day, so you're in the office till 5 a.m. night after night, doing all of this manual work, you're going to make mistakes. So our platform tackles all kinds of things on the deal process, from document management to signatures to collaboration. We create closing binders with the click of a button. We have a suite of features of covering various areas of the deal closing process, all geared to eliminating that manual labor so that deals can be done efficiently, accurately, and close on time. We come after the due diligence though. So you have the data room with all of the company's documents. Lawyers are reviewing all those documents to make sure there's no surprises. As that's going on, or near the tail end of that process, they start drafting the transaction documents. That's where we come into play. So we're post due diligence, we're the closing and signing and all of that. And then typically the law firm can bill. So the quicker they can move through the deal closing process, the sooner they can bill, the sooner they can make money. And that's one of the ROIs, of course, is collect, payments faster, bill sooner. and ideally do more deals in the same time span, because each deal now takes less effort. So that's a, you know, kind of a long
That's the
explanation.
pitch. Perfect.
That
Yeah,
covers it. Yeah, that's the 5-minute elevator pitch. Long
smashed it.
elevator.
So, because I think a lot of technologies I always think is quite interesting is the end client's not necessarily always the end client, right? So, like if
Mhm.
you're, for example, I've sold litigation tools like eDiscovery and M&A data rooms and all these kind of good things, and so you want to partner with law firms because they are transactionally focused, so they do volume, right? Because there's no point in you going to a mum and pop shop to try and sell the tech where they might sell in 57 years time, right? So how did that initially kind of engagement work for you guys? Because you probably don't have loads of competitors, so was it quite a high and steep learning curve to kind of get lawyers thinking about, actually this is something we should invest in, or was it fairly easy?
It's gotten better over time in the and I think maybe that's the case for a lot of new legal tech. Like there's law firms are much more open to technology. It's not the easiest, definitely. Like lawyers are very, very busy, and paper works, right? It's maybe not efficient. And it's very error prone, but emailing and paper and pen and Word and all of that is very, very flexible. And it works, even if it doesn't work well. But you know, it might not work well, but it is very, very flexible, lets you do your workflow how you want. As soon as you start using technology, even the most flexible technology still has things that you need to accommodate the technology. We try to be as flexible as possible, but there are changes you have to make. And it comes down to change management. And that's never an easy thing. You know, we have lots of things we do to help with adoption, and we really try to like ensure that our product is not just shelfware, but it's actually being used, and it's providing value to the people who paid for it. Because you know, no one wants to give us their money. They want a product. That's why they're giving us their money. So we need the product to work for them. So we've learned a lot on that topic. Law firms, I think, are a more difficult kind of customer in terms of change management and making sure they're using the platform. Even if they, you know, love it when they trial it and on a demo, you know, if a fire comes up, that can prevent, everything can go out the window. But once they do start seeing the value and it's actually improving their life like we promise it will, it becomes indispensable to them. So yeah, in terms of adoption is really, you know, it's just a critical part of the process, really focusing on that. And it's like going to the gym, right? You got to put in the work, but when you do the work, you get results. And that's kind of what we tell our customers.
So you almost have to kind of trust us in the first one, because you have to go through that bell curve of learning. But like deal 4, 5, 6 becomes second nature, and that's where you kind of see the value, right?
Yeah, and we do really focus on user experience and a really like minimal user interface. Deal Closer can do a lot now at this point.
Yeah,
There's just, you know, getting around it. There's a breadth of features, and with breadth of feature comes more complexity. But we really focus on an excellent user experience, and we really focus on training and adoption, as I've said. It takes about an hour of training to kind of get the fundamentals of Deal Closer, where you could probably go and do your own deal. But definitely by definitely the third deal, you're probably up and running. And as soon as you have all those signatures come in and you click a single button to get what's called the closing binder, which is kind of the final product, that typically takes weeks or months to make manually. That's kind of the aha moment. It's like, wow, I got the deal set up. All the signatures came in quickly, within a day, typically. And I clicked a button and I finished my entire deal, and I cut off 3 to 6 months of waiting time and effort.
sure. Yeah,
that's a magical moment.
that is awesome. The coming back to a point that I mentioned before. So obviously you started your own business and things. What are the bits that you enjoyed the most out of creating that? Because you said obviously sales was the scariest thing. What kind of pieces kind of fall? I'm going to use air quotes naturally to you, as part of that process.
Yeah, so the things I've loved, I guess, just the feeling of taking an idea and making it real. And now it was an idea, and now it's something that people actually use every day, that they depend on for their work. That's a really rewarding feeling. Getting to like build a team and create a culture that is like the kind of place I'd want to work at.
Yeah,
is I really enjoy. I also enjoy, this is maybe a bit nerdy, but like I enjoy, like, as we, especially in the early days, we pick a new technology to help, you know, to tackle a process.
yeah.
And I'd love just setting it up and just playing around. And maybe because we build software ourselves, I love like trying new software out and you know, and making it work for us and setting it up. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot I love about it, but mostly it's just like that it's changing all the time, that it's there's lots of challenges, that I'm learning so much about things like sales. Like I didn't set out to be as a lawyer to be a salesperson, but I've learned a lot about it. I learned a lot about product management. I love that area. I love thinking about the product, and yeah. So there's lots of stuff I love. It's just sales. It's not that I even dislike sales. It just was very intimidating at first to me.
Yeah, no, it's good understanding this, because there's obviously so many different pieces of the pie that go into delivering a product. Even its first iteration takes a huge lift on everybody to get it there, right? And then also you need to have that feedback loop with the clients. Because sometimes I speak to founders and they said, we sweated over this piece of functionality for 8 months, we released it, and all the clients hated it. Right? So it's so important to have those feedback loops. What do you think is the plan for you guys kind of over the next 12 months then? Because there's a load of stuff going on in the world at the moment. I promised my wife I wouldn't talk about Credit Suisse and UBS, so we won't talk about that and what's going on there. But like, what do you think is kind of the plan for you guys over the next kind of 12 to 14 months?
So we're closing a round right away.
Cool.
So we'll have, I can't talk about it much now, but there'll be some news about that soon enough. So that's, you know, that's in the immediate future. And then our plan is really, so we built like our product is pretty awesome. Like very proud of the product we built.
You have to put a disclaimer after that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I might be biased, but I am very proud of it. I mean, it's come such a long way. There were definite gaps, but we've really closed a lot of those gaps, and the product is great shape. It's never done. There's tons of iterations to go, tons of features. Our roadmap is 3 years long. So we've got a ways to go. It's always probably going to be 3 years long. I don't think we'll ever get to the end, but we're really going to be focusing on expanding more into the US, because we're pretty, you know, we've got solid base here in Canada. We've got some good traction in the US, but we really want to grow in the US. And then we'll start looking into Europe as well. So starting to grow outside of our home country of Canada. Which we're already seeing good success with. And then, yeah, in terms of, and then continuing to build features, listening to our customers, seeing how they use it, talking to them, figuring out what's next, and just continuing to build on the traction we have to date, using, you know, and using this round that we've got to bring in to grow the team.
World domination. I think that's
right. To our little part of it, yes, world domination.
Well, I think it's so important to have definition on what you're great at, though, right? In your kind of your niche, because I think it's so easy to kind of get distracted by all these kind of apples, right? So it seems like you have a real focus on what you guys want to achieve, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's right now, it's what we know best is the legal industry. You know, you mentioned earlier, you know, we don't sell to businesses directly because you know, there's a lot of things I think a small business can probably do on their own when it comes to legal work, and maybe not spend on a lawyer. Selling your business is not one of them. I feel like you probably should have a lawyer. So, you know, focusing on lawyers, they're the ones doing the deals. We're selling a deal closing platform. But we do think there's other verticals that might make sense. And as we start seeing the growth we want in, or as we start seeing, you know, further and further growth in what we know, we can start looking at things that are related, tangential to the legal industry, but aren't necessarily law firms or in-house counsel.
Yeah, because one of the things we were doing when I was in the data room world is we would, like, again, work with businesses around sale prep, right, is a certain area, right? Because again, if you own a company, even for funding rounds, right, is that you need to make sure your house is in order to achieve your maximum valuation for investment. There you go. So it's all never ending. But Amir, thanks so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was great to talk.
Cheers, mate.